This isn't simply a business acquisition. This is two great dynasties coming together in a historic union in order to provide the best possible service for customers around the world.
Surely you don't expect us to actually turn up and work for you?
You've done enough damage already. Your father be turning in his grave.
The wonderful TV show Mr. Selfridge tells you that this moment is just business. Harry Selfridge buying Whiteleys from William Whiteley's sons. But there is a deeper truth behind this business deal. It's soaked in obsession, betrayal, secrets, and a murder committed by a man who claimed he was William Whiteley's abandoned son, the half-brother of the Whiteley sons. Their father's empire collapsed into a crime scene 20 years before Harry Selfridge took over, and to understand why that happened, we have to start at the beginning. So please come back with me to 1831. But first, if you like these stories about the most scandalous people from yesteryear who make Ty's Hot Mess History a time capsule for the culture, please subscribe. Now, on to why you are here. It's 1831 in Wakefield, Yorkshire, and William Whiteley is born. He is not born into money, but in just a little while, he'll have something better than money. Ambition that doesn't quit. And by September 29th, 1851, everyone starts to see it. William is 20 years old, working as an apprentice in the drapery trade, and full of confidence in his own abilities when he leaves his hometown and heads for London to spend a week at the Great Exhibition. One look at that city and William Whiteley makes up his mind. London is where he will cast his net. So he returns to Wakefield, completes his apprenticeship, and makes for London with £7 and 10 shillings in his pocket. Out of that, he has to pay 15 shillings for a third-class railway ticket. This is the sum with which I began life, he will later proudly tell the press. Before he leaves, his uncle offers him a £5 note as a send-off gift. William politely but firmly declines it. Not a penny, he says. I have never received a farthing that I have not worked for, and I mean to stick to it through life. And this is how William will continue to live his life. I guess if you don't count the insurance fraud that is coming later. Stick with me. He enters London as a shopman at £30 a year. That's about $7,000 per year in today's money, and he also gets board and lodging with his salary. He remains 15 months behind the retail counter before deciding to try wholesale trade. So the next 2.5 years, he's working for other business owners, watching their every move and learning. Now he's ready to build something for himself. He declares these 3 principles for himself. Honesty is the best policy, small profits and quick returns, and no credit. Simple, effective, and ruthless. In 1863, William Whiteley opens William Whiteley Fancy Goods on Westbourne Grove in Bayswater. His entire staff on opening day consists of 2 young women and an errand boy. One of those 2 young women will later become his wife, and you're going to see that this is just the beginning of William's pattern of mixing business with his bedroom activities. He's a little late taking down the shutters on opening day, and his very first customer, a Mrs. Johnson, walks in before he's ready to open shop. He apologizes. She tells him she supposed she was his first customer, then asks permission to offer a prayer. He says yes, and the 2 of them will remain friends until the day she dies. His later interactions with customers and staff won't be so friendly in the years to follow this sweet interaction. William Whiteley has one thing on his mind: expansion. He is studying rival shops obsessively. He's watching how women shop, how clerks behave, how inventory moves. He starts undercutting prices aggressively, easily winning customers from his local competition. He's poaching skilled staff from competing shops and expanding at a pace that makes his neighbors in Bayswater furious. This leads to local shopkeepers organizing against him. His competitors are now accusing him of predatory pricing and unfair tactics. But William doesn't care about their whining. The more they complain, the more he presses and employs his cutthroat tactics. His goal is to get rid of those losers who can't keep up with his pace. By the 1880s, whole blocks of Bayswater are absorbed into what people are now calling simply Whiteley's. He has earned the nickname the Universal Provider, meaning whatever a person needs to buy, they can buy it from William Whiteley. He loves his new nickname and he wears it like a crown. By December of 1889, the Morning Post is reporting that Whiteley's is no longer just selling you fabric and fancy goods. He is now running a full real estate agency out of 26 Westbourne Grove. He will sell you a house and furnish it for you. He is employing a small army of 6,000 workers across his vast premises. From the cradle to the grave, his advertisements declare, Whiteley's can supply it all. One man has turned a tiny shop staffed by 2 women and an errand boy into something closer to a corporation, and the bigger he grows, the louder the gossip about him becomes. His competitors are so threatened by him that they go after him in court. The charge is that William is selling a cotton product called flannelette, while letting customers believe it contains wool. The Marylebone Police Court hears the case, calls extensive witnesses, and ultimately dismisses the charges completely. Not only does William Whiteley walk free, but the court orders his accusers to pay him 20 guineas in court costs. That tells you the kind of man William Whiteley is. He does not just win, he makes you pay for even having the nerve to come at him in the first place. His competitors learn this lesson the hard way, and they will not be the last ones to learn it. Then come the fires. In November of 1882, the Surrey Mirror reports a serious fire at Whiteley's on Westbourne Grove. It starts in the foreign toy department at 11:30 at night. It is not extinguished until 5 o'clock in the morning. 5 shops burn completely. 2 more are badly damaged. 1 fireman is seriously injured, falling through a floor. Less than 6 weeks later, in December of 1882, the Taunton Courier reports another fire at Whiteley's, this time on the 5th floor of the Queen's Road premises. 2 upper floors burn out and an immense quantity of stock is destroyed. Then, in April of 1884, a 3rd fire. The Daily News calls it the Great Fire at Whiteley's. 3 fires in 18 months. The April fire is the worst of the 3. It destroys a massive block of buildings extending from Queen's Road all the way to the rear of the older buildings on Westbourne Grove. Whiteley estimates his losses at nearly £500,000, about 103 million USD today. Multiple insurance companies scramble to divide the claims, with the Royal alone on the hook for £34,000, nearly $7 million today. Inflation aside, you know that insurance carriers typically prefer to pay $0.00 on claims, so however you cut it, that's a lot of money. And oddly enough, after each of these fires, William Whiteley does not mourn. He does not close. He immediately sends out tens of thousands of postcards to customers announcing his January clearance sales. The Telegraph and Argus notes dryly that his great fires have proved to be splendid advertisements, attracting bargain hunters from all parts of London. The man turns disasters into marketing opportunities in real time. But there is a question on everyone's mind. Was he setting his own fires? The West Australian later reports that it is shrewdly suspected, though never proved through lack of evidence, that the 5 fires, yes, there were 2 more, between 1882 and 1887 are the work of incendiaries, arsonists. William always has enemies who would love to burn him out, but he also always has insurance. And he always has postcards ready. Were the fire started without his knowledge or because of him? You decide for yourself, and please let me know what you think in the comments. But just know that after every fire, he got richer. Now, remember those two young women working the counter on opening day back in 1863? I already told you that William Whiteley married one of them. Her name is Harriet Sarah. She is quiet, gentle, and socially reserved. And as his empire grows, she becomes increasingly withdrawn, overshadowed, and miserable in a marriage where the business consumes her husband almost completely. But in addition to his business ventures, something else is consuming William Whiteley's attention. Women. Women who are not his wife. Yes, William Whiteley is a cheater, pumpkin eater. The Victorian press circles these stories carefully, using coded language. Remember, it's the 1880s. English news writers can't just come out and print, "William Whiteley is shagging 3 of his shop girls." However, there are whispers about, quote, impropriety with female assistants, references to undue familiarity, notes about young lady clerks receiving special attention. Former female employees quietly receive what his business managers call settlements, presents of money, and there are many abrupt departures paired with hush payments. These payments are understood to be connected to sexual relationships with William. This is a pattern, a long, documented, quietly managed pattern. None of these women are Harriet Sarah, but they exist, and the people around William Whiteley know they exist. Those people include Harriet Sarah, his long-suffering wife. In 1882, Harriet Sarah discovers what the West Australian will later describe as her husband's goings-on at Brighton with a certain young lady toward whom he has been strongly attracted. Brighton is a seaside resort, a bit of a romantic setting, and William is there with a young woman, while his wife is at home running the household that he is too busy to manage. The household which, for the longest, has also had 4 of his children she birthed. This woman is at her wit's end, and this is the end of the marriage. Kind of. They separate after 25 years together. He moves on, but she remains his legal wife for the rest of his life. A life that's going to end in a brutal, surprising way. After she confronts William with some evidence of his cheating, he practically drives her into a corner by sending her a solicitor's letter to force that legal separation. And she's pretty much out of his life, the mother of his children, and the woman who helped him to build his unstoppable retail empire. But we will hear from Harriet Sarah again after William meets his end. Next up is another affair that will not stay quiet. Or should I say, affairs that will not stay quiet. And one of them started before the separation. Here's the deal. In 1879, a woman named Emily Turner gives birth to a boy. That boy is William Whiteley's biological son. William never publicly acknowledges him. The child is taken in and raised by a man named George Rayner, registered under the Rayner name, and grows up simply known as Horace George Rayner. And as far as the world is concerned, he is George Rayner's son. As far as William is concerned, once he moves on from Emily, this child does not exist. But William is not done with the Turner family just yet. Emily Turner has a sister named Louisa. Sometime around 1883 or 1884, William becomes connected with Louisa as well. He is providing for both sisters. Remember, he is the universal provider, after all. And he has put them up in a place on Greville Road in Kilburn, a respectable working and lower middle class neighborhood. It is not a fashionable address. He's no Harry Selfridge, another great department store owner who will become a thorn in William's side before his life is over. a man who puts his mistresses in some of the finest homes that London had to offer, but we'll get back to Harry Selfridge before this story is over. William was different with his mistresses, really low-key. This little house in Kilburn was the kind of place where a man with William's wealth could quietly keep a woman without drawing attention from his social circle. And that was his whole point when it came to his extra girlfriends. Discretion, not luxury. So I want to be clear when I tell you that William Whiteley is connected to both sisters, sexually. Emily is described as living under William's protection, which in Victorian language means he is keeping her financially, which is as close as respectable 1880s sources will come to saying that this is a sexual relationship. And on September 15th, 1885, Louisa Turner gives birth to a child. That child is William Whiteley's biological son also. So that seems like a sexual relationship to me. William and Louisa part ways in May of 1888. That little boy, Louisa's son, is a child that the court will later refer to as Cecil Whiteley. William never publicly acknowledges Cecil either. And as far as William is concerned, this child doesn't exist now that William isn't sleeping with the boy's mother. So, to be perfectly clear, William Whiteley has at least two secret biological sons. Horace, born to Emily in 1879, and Cecil, born to Louisa in 1885. Two different mothers who are sisters, two different boys, and one biological father who wants nothing to do with either of them. Horace's father figure is George Rayner, a stockbroker. Horace goes on to live a good life with a decent upbringing, not like the biological sons who William Whiteley publicly claims, but a solid upbringing. He is educated at a well-known Roman Catholic college. He is bright, highly intelligent, well-informed, and exceedingly handsome. In January of 1898, his mother dies. Horace is 19 years old. Before she goes, she tells him that William Whiteley is his biological father. That is the first time Horace hears this information. Sometime between 1898 and 1901, he makes contact with his Aunt Louisa and asks who he is. She tells him as much as she is willing to tell him, which is not very much, but it is enough. Horace learns that William Whiteley has another biological son by Louisa herself. He now understands exactly who he is and who has been ignoring his existence his entire life. William Whiteley. For now, he tucks that news in the back of his mind and moves on with his life. He obtains a lucrative position in Russia, and by his late 20s, upon his return to London, he has built a solid reputation in London's business world. And then something freaky happens. I don't know exactly when, but at some point, Horace and William become very familiar with each other. They get to know each other on a very personal basis. William Whiteley and Horace George Rayner become acquainted through two young women who are sisters. The two men go down to Brighton together to visit these two young women. And you already know that Brighton is a romantic, beachy resort. There's a whole lot of keeping it in the family in this story, isn't there? Anyway, whether William knows exactly who Horace is at this point is never established, but they are not strangers. And whatever happens in Brighton with the sisters ends badly. Horace accuses William of leveling a charge against one of these young ladies and against Horace himself. The case is placed in the hands of attorneys. It does not come to court, but it destroys whatever relationship exists between these two men completely. From this point forward, Horace George Rayner has nothing but contempt for William Whiteley, who doesn't seem to know that this young man is his son. On January 23, 1907, the Tatler publishes a satirical illustration depicting William Whiteley among the great capitalists of the world, alongside the Duke of Northcliffe, J.P. Morgan, Andrew Carnegie, Lord Lipton, and others. He is 76 years old and by all appearances at the height of his power. nobody sees what is coming next, except for Horace Rayner. Because also on that same date, January 23rd, 1907, Horace goes to a shop on the Strand and purchases a police revolver. The next morning, January 24th, 1907, he calls at William Whiteley's private residence at Porchester Terrace. He makes a request to see Mr. Whiteley and is directed to the Westbourne Grove establishment. At Whiteley's, he represents himself as coming from Sir George Lewis. He is William Whiteley's attorney. Horace is then taken to desk number 1, where he sees Mr. Goodman, the chief cashier. Then he is brought in to see Mr. Whiteley privately. The interview is a short one. Horace asks William for money. William refuses. William tells Horace that he cannot argue with him any longer. He threatens Horace that he will fetch a policeman, and he steps away to do just that. Then the following exchange takes place. Horace follows William out and asks, "Won't you come in again?" William replies, "No, no, go away, and if you don't, I will fetch a policeman." Horace asks, "Aren't you going to come back? Is that your final word?" William says, "Yes." Horace says, "Then you are a dead man." He draws a revolver from his breast pocket, aims it at the 76-year-old store magnate's head, and fires 2 shots. William Whiteley falls dead. Horace immediately turns the revolver on himself, on his forehead, and shoots. He shoots out his own right eye. The Evening Standard's front page on January 24th, 1907 is direct. Mr. Whiteley shot. Universal provider killed in his shop. Assailant alleges he is a son of the dead man. In Horace's top hat, police find a piece of paper. On it is written, "To all whom it may concern, William Whiteley is my father, and he has brought upon himself and me a double fatality by reason of his own refusal of a request perfectly reasonable. R.I.P." Horace George Rayner is 31 years old, and he's alive. His suicide attempt fails, and now he has to deal with recovery and legal ramifications. It is during the investigation that follows that London learns more about the man who pulled the trigger. Horace has a wife, and Horace has a girlfriend, and he has been making plans to marry his girlfriend. Meanwhile, his wife is pregnant with their 3rd child and has not heard from him in several weeks. She has been worried sick, unable to sleep, with no idea where he has been, what he has been doing, or whom he has been doing. She desperately just wants to get to London, but she's in Bewdley, which is approximately 130 miles from London. That is a significant distance, especially for a pregnant woman in 1907. But she only wants to go to her husband, to be by his side and support him. That's probably because she doesn't yet know about his girlfriend/fiancé. As for the girlfriend, the barmaid he has been courting and planning to marry, she collapses upon hearing the news. She has to be picked up after fainting and falling onto the floor at the Horseshoe Hotel and taken to her room, where she remains prostrate for the rest of the day. Horace George Rayner is, by every available account, a cheater, just like the man he has been told is his father. And he had serious plans to marry the barmaid. They were planning to start a new life in Canada. He was literally planning to leave his wife with 2 children and a 3rd on the way, never telling her a word. And the more you learn about these 2 men, doesn't it seem like Horace is just the apple who hasn't fallen too far from the tree? Especially when it comes to the way that he and William treat women. Well, treated women in William's case. It's time for his funeral. William Whiteley's funeral takes place on January 30th, 1907. The Evening Standard calls it a remarkable demonstration of sympathy. Thousands of people line the route from Porchester Terrace to the cemetery at Kensal Green, at least an hour before the procession begins. At Lancaster Gate, police struggle to keep the crowd back from the roadway. 6,000 people attend. After his funeral, his wife and daughters do not go to the cemetery for the burial. And I'm sure that you're not surprised to learn this fact. Harriet Sarah let the press know 2 days before the funeral that the burial would be too much for her to bear. After all, she knew that her husband was a cheater, but she didn't know all of the stuff that was going on with him while she had been married to him. So I want to take a brief moment and let you hear her words from an interview when the press wanted to find out about how much she knew about all of the players in the drama that led to William's death. From the January 28, 1907 edition of the Telegraph and Argus, in a story called Interview with Mrs. William Whiteley, a Pathetic Story, quote, "Yesterday afternoon she went to London. On Wednesday she will attend the memorial service, but it is improbable that she will see the remains of her husband laid in their last resting place. Perhaps it will be more readily understood that she made those arrangements only at the cost of a severe mental ordeal, when it is stated that the deeper tragedy lies not in the death of the great businessman, but in the pathetic story of the woman who helped him through his early struggles." It goes on to say, the chief object of the correspondent's visit was to learn if she was acquainted with any of the names that this sordid melodrama has cast up during the last few days. Did she know George Rayner or the murderer Horace? Had she ever heard of the Turners, Louise and Emily? Above all, did she know anything of a Cecil Whiteley Turner? "I have never heard of any of these people," she replied. "Their names are all new to me. You must remember, first of all, that it is 25 years since I and my husband separated. We were together for 14 years, and during the whole of that time, I don't think he ever told me anything of his private affairs. You say that George Rayner was once a friend of his. I never knew it. You tell me that he knew 2 girls, Emily and Louise Turner. I now hear it for the first time. As for the rest, I have never heard of such a person as Cecil Whiteley Turner until today. As I have said, I knew very little of what my husband did when he was away from home. He told me very little. He used to go to such places as Brighton for weekends. But why he went and what he did there were all matters which were never discussed." For a moment she was silent. "And yet," she continued, "I was a good wife to him." She spoke slowly and with ill-concealed emotion. "I was always ready to be a good wife to him. How I worked for the man, slaved for him." End quote. She would go on to describe sitting at the top of the house, counting money until she could hardly keep her eyes open, and a lot more labor that she put into the marriage for a husband who abandoned her for young women to have sex with. And at the point that William is going in the ground, she is not grieving. She is exhausted. 25 years of separation, a lifetime of slaving for a man who cheated on her repeatedly, who sent her an attorney's letter to end their marriage, and she is still his legal wife when he dies. She sends a large harp-shaped wreath of white flowers to the funeral. The inscription reads, "From his broken-hearted wife." The newspaper noted specifically. By the way, if you don't know the name Cecil Whiteley Turner yet, you will, though you may have already figured it out. It comes out in the trial, and that's where we're going. Anyway, Horace is taken to St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington, and after a few weeks of treatment, he recovers. So now it's time to face the consequences for killing William Whiteley, and that starts with a conversation with the police. By the time he appears in the dock at the police court weeks later, the Evening Standard describes him as a man precipitated by one tragic episode into middle age, broken on the wheel of circumstance. His unkempt beard, his hollow face, His heavy lines and his artificial eye give him the look, the paper says, of one rendered by torture unable to display emotion or take a coherent interest in his surroundings. The handsome young man who went to Brighton with William Whiteley and a couple of sisters is gone. What sits in that dock is a shell of his former self. He is officially charged with the willful murder of William Whiteley. At trial, so much of William Whiteley's dirt is exposed. Horace testifies that William seduced his mother. He retells the bits of information that his mother and aunt told him about how he was conceived. The prosecution and defense both debate paternity, but no confirmation is ever reached. What the prosecution does establish is this: Horace's motive was blackmail. Even though he was running around London looking fine in his smart suits and he had friends in high places, his reality at the time was something altogether different. At the time of the murder, he was homeless, penniless, and desperate. His history is that of a man of good education, brought low by his own poor decisions, and he was always in financial trouble. The court hears from Sir George Lewis, William Whiteley's personal attorney, and what the court wants to know is simple. Did William Whiteley pay Horace's mother to keep quiet? Sir George testifies that yes, he acted for William Whiteley in legal proceedings involving Mrs. Rayner, Horace's mother, sometime in 1888 or 1889. Then the questioning goes deeper. Did he act for William in any proceedings connected to Louisa Turner, Horace's aunt? Remember, there were 2 children, one with each sister. Well, the moment that question lands, Sir George shuts it down. He claims his attorney-client privilege, meaning he is legally protected from revealing the details of what he did on William's behalf. The judge tries to press him. He refuses to budge. He will only confirm the bare minimum. Yes, he acted for William in a matter involving this woman. That is all he will say. And the judge cannot force him to go further. But that confirmation alone is devastating. William Whiteley's own lawyer is sitting in a murder trial, admitting that his wealthy client had a formal legal arrangement with the mother of the man who just shot him dead. And you and I know that you do not hire a solicitor or an attorney to handle a woman you have never met. Something was being managed. Something had been paid. And Sir George Lewis is taking that secret to his grave. Louisa Turner, the prisoner's aunt, is called next. The prisoner is Horace. That's his new name in the press. Anyway, Aunt Louisa is a tall, slender woman dressed in black and wearing pince-nez glasses, the kind that don't have earpieces and just stay on by pinching the bridge of the nose. She confirms that she did, in fact, live under William Whiteley's protection on Gravel Road in Kilburn. She confirms that she herself has a son by William Whiteley, the child the court refers to as Cecil Whiteley. She has raised him and paid for his upbringing and education, so to be absolutely clear, there are 2 sons that William Whiteley has abandoned. Horace, sitting at the dock, born to Emily, and Cecil, Louisa's son, living somewhere out there, unaware that his half-brother has just committed murder in the name of a father. Neither one of them was ever allowed to claim. The story is a sad one and touches the hearts of many in the courtroom, but after deliberations, the jury finds Horace George Rayner guilty of willful murder, and he is sentenced to death. But the sentence doesn't stick, and just weeks later, Horace gets some unexpected good news. His sentence is commuted. According to the Daily Graphic, in April of 1907, the Secretary of State informs the governor of Pentonville Prison that in view of all of the circumstances, the capital sentence has been commuted to penal servitude for life. And his legal luck doesn't stop at his life sentence. After serving 12 years of his life sentence, Horace George Rayner is released in 1919. After the murder, the two legitimate Whiteley sons handled their father's legacy very differently. George Whiteley, who later becomes Baron Marchamley, is absolutely committed to protecting the family name. He denies the paternity of Horace entirely. He claims Horace is lying, but his political career depends on keeping his father's moral reputation intact. William Whiteley Jr. is more quietly open to the possibility that the affair has occurred, though he never publicly claims Horace. William Whiteley left an estate proved at upwards of £1.5 million sterling. Of that sum, he left approximately £1 million to the founding and maintenance of what becomes known as Whiteley Village, a home for the aged poor in Surrey. It still exists today. The man who underpaid his employees, cheated on his wife, and abandoned his illegitimate children left £1 million to house the elderly poor, perhaps proving that no one is all bad or all good, and people are complicated. The business itself struggles after William's murder. The reputation is damaged. The leadership is gone. Competition from more modern retailers is ferocious. And in April of 1927, the Sketch Daily announces a £10 million deal. Selfridges and Whiteleys will amalgamate. Harry Selfridge, one of the fiercest competitors of Whiteley's, writes to the managing director of Whiteley's, "It can be done. It must be done. It will be done." The oldest big store in London joins forces with the youngest big store in London. The handshake you see in the Selfridge television series is historically accurate in spirit. Harry Selfridge takes the empire that William Whiteley built with his obsession, his ruthlessness, his infidelities, and ultimately his life. And all of these years later, the question remains, was Horace George Rayner telling the truth? He was certainly telling the truth as he knew it, but the court never confirmed it. But a child named Cecil Whiteley was somewhere out there. The pattern of affairs and hushed payments to female employees was established at trial as a fact, and William Whiteley never, at any point, simply said, "I never knew that woman." The Whiteley's empire collapsed, not because of one bullet. It collapsed because of decades of ambition, rumors, affairs, resentments, and the son who believed that he was discarded. The Selfridge takeover is merely the final frame of a story that began with obsession and ended in bloodshed. Now, as far as we know, Harry Selfridge didn't have any children out of wedlock, but he did cheat on his wife, repeatedly and very publicly. I published a story about him and his great London store, and his many mistresses that you can see here. I'll also leave links to it in the description box and pinned comment. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. My sources for this story are on the screen. This video has been brought to you by me. Well, me and my new YouTube channel, Verified YouTube Guide. Are you just starting your YouTube journey and feeling overwhelmed? Don't worry, I've got you covered. My channel, Verified YouTube Guide, is your go-to resource for practical, step-by-step tips to grow and monetize your channel. It's literally follow-along video tutorials. I'm showing you the steps I took to get 180,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you don't know how to do something, you can just copy my work one step at a time. From setting up your channel to showing you how you can earn money at any stage on YouTube. And I'm not just talking about YouTube ad revenue. If you have something important to say or a service to sell, start talking about it on YouTube now. Don't wait. Subscribe to Verified YouTube Guide today, and let's build your channel together. You don't have to figure this out alone. The link is in the description box. I'll see you there. I hope that you have enjoyed this tale so far. If you love these scandalous stories from history that make Ty's Hot Mess History a time capsule for the culture, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Give this video a thumbs up. It's free and helps a ton. Whether you're watching or listening, thank you for letting me be a part of your day.